Today, Alberta's government is announcing bold and targeted new measures to protect both lives and livelihoods by limiting the spread of COVID-19. This pandemic is a once-in-a-century public health challenge, and it has impacted every one of us in many different ways. The vast majority of Albertans have worked hard to abide by the restrictions announced on November the 12th and all of our guidelines. But the virus continues to spread. Its spread is picking up speed. Thank you to everyone, however, who has done their best. But as I say, we have all observed that Alberta has set daily records for new COVID-19 cases and more lives lost. This has been a long, hard year, but babies are still being born, thank God, and car accidents unfortunately still happen, and thousands of people are waiting for surgeries to be performed. And here is today's urgent reality. If we do not slow the sharp rise of both hospitalizations and ICU admissions, they will threaten our ability to continue delivering health services that we all rely on. This has already started. Edmonton Zone has already postponed many non-urgent surgeries. As cases continue to rise, other surgeries and services will have to be put on hold to make sure that we have the hospital beds and staff available to care for people with COVID and all other critically ill patients. And that is why I am declaring a state of public health emergency in Alberta. We are also announcing a series of targeted measures approved by the COVID Cabinet Committee based on recommendations from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. These mandatory measures will place new restrictions on social gatherings, worship services, businesses, schools, and all Albertans. Believe me, these steps are not being taken lightly, and I certainly didn't go into public service, nor did any of the people sitting around our cabinet table, in order to impose restrictions on how people live their lives. But we believe these are the minimum restrictions needed right now to safeguard our healthcare system while avoiding widespread damage to people's livelihoods. We are doing everything we can to strike that balance. Let me just be absolutely clear about this. Social gatherings are the biggest problem. Many people may think that a family dinner or get-together with friends is no big deal, it's just normal. And, we don't imagine when we gather with family that people are going to be transmitting a virus like this, but it is the key reason why COVID-19 is winning. These gatherings in the home continue to be the largest source of transmission, and so they must stop now. That's why, effective immediately, no indoor social gatherings will be permitted in any setting, and outdoor social gatherings will be limited to a maximum of 10 people. Let me repeat, no indoor social gatherings will be permitted, period. This restriction applies across the province, and it is mandatory. We will enforce it, and those who break, we will enforce these rules against indoor social gatherings, and those who break these rules will be subject to fines. These mandatory restrictions will be in place for 3 weeks and will be reevaluated mid-December. Effective Friday, we are also implementing new temporary restrictions to limit the number of people coming into contact with each other at businesses and services. These restrictions fall under 3 categories: closed for in-person businesses, open with restricted capacity, and thirdly, open by appointment only. Effective this Friday, we are temporarily closing certain businesses for in-person service in select regions. This includes the closure of banquet halls, conference centers, and concert venues. It also impacts all levels of sport, though leagues may apply for exemptions if they have well-developed COVID safety plans. Retail businesses and services may remain open, but will be restricted to 25% of occupancy limits. In-person dining in bars, restaurants, pubs, and cafes can continue, but we'll need to comply with our guidelines very carefully. And those dining out must be limited to those who are in one household, similar to the protocol in British Columbia. Finally, some businesses will be restricted to appointment only and must follow all public health guidance in place. This includes hair salons, personal wellness services, hotels, professional services, and other businesses. We're also calling on all workers who can work from home to do so. I truly appreciate that many businesses have made major investments in creating safe workplaces, but the hard fact is this: transmission at offices continues to be a major reason for spread. The Government of Alberta will lead by example, transitioning much of our office workforce to remote work in the days and weeks to come. These measures will be in place for a minimum of 3 weeks and will be reevaluated as well in mid-December. On November 30, all students in grades 7 through 12 will end in-person schooling for the balance of 2020, and on December 18, all students will begin their winter breaks. In-person learning for all students will be delayed a week after the holiday until January the 11th to allow kids who have been around family, for example, and perhaps friends over the holidays to have that latency period before they go back to school. These measures are tough, but they are necessary. They are needed to protect our healthcare system from being overwhelmed and to ensure that Albertans can access care for medical needs besides COVID-19. They are needed to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. They are also needed to protect Albertans from the health, social, and economic damage that a crushing lockdown would inflict. We must not forget that every measure we put in place does make life harder for thousands of Albertans. Every new restriction makes it tougher for business owners to stay open and for thousands of people to pay their bills. Each new measure pushes more people into debt and more families closer to bankruptcy. All across Alberta, there are restaurants, hotels, retail business, and so many others. I call them the unsung heroes of our economy. So many of family-owned businesses where they throw everything, their life savings at risk to create opportunity to hire people. They need to know Albertans have their back. And so I encourage all Albertans to shop local and continue to support Alberta-based businesses wherever and whenever possible. These restrictions are not about our preferences, they're not about politics, they're not about abstractions, they are about protecting both people's lives and the livelihoods that they depend on. This is the way forward for Alberta, and that is the path that we are taking today.